Hi there, this is Jackie and this is my mother Sally of Sally Jerney Quilts, and I'm doing a takeover of her channel today to interview her. If you're new here, welcome, and if you're a long-time viewer, you know that Sally hasn't been here for a while.
I haven't.
No, so this is very exciting and we will explain all of that in the video ahead, but before that, I just wanted to say that I'm making an announcement. Ta-da! Sally's having a one-woman show at the Good Day Shop. And what's the date of that?
That's May 16th. It's a Friday. It's from 5 to 9.
A gallery night.
A gallery night up and down Monroe Street.
And the Good Day Shop has always been one of our favorite places.
Yes.
You had a channel back in the day and it was about quilting. The reason that she hasn't carried on with that is you had cancer.
Yeah, I mean, quilting has been a thread through my entire creative, journey. And yes, I was diagnosed a couple of years ago with lymphoma. Came out the other side, grateful with a renewed energy to create.
Can you talk about, just to review briefly, the experience of social media and the support of strangers as you went through your cancer journey?
Oh, it was just amazing. There were so many people. I couldn't believe it. Like, I'd be in the emergency room in a really tough spot, and my daughters would bring in a gift from a knitter, some fingerless gloves, or I'd get cards, I'd get notes, I'd get, how's your mom doing? There just was so much love and support in the stream of our knitting community.
Did that make an impact?
Oh, it made an enormous impact. I just felt so taken care of. I couldn't believe it. The cards, just the kindnesses I had done during that time. Remember, I did that gratitude on my Instagram feed. I did a daily gratitude. And what felt good about that is that I kept getting people telling me their stories, and we kind of recognized our community we were helping each other. When I would get these lovely gifts and lovely kind words and then pass them along, and it just flows.
So like in a moment where someone might be full of fear or cynicism, I think your experience can say we really can. Well, just speak to, what does your experience say to that?
It says
that an impact?
Yes, that we have an impact. All the, if you're ever thinking, should I reach out to somebody? Should I just say something? Should I just tell them, that I'm thinking of them? Should I, all those, whatever, who am I? They don't know me. It was total strangers that sent me the most endearing messages that made me feel like I wasn't alone, like they knew what I was going through.
And I just want to take a moment to put someone in our heart right now.
Right.
So I know I already know who I'm thinking of. Do you know who you're thinking of, or do you need a little more time? And
no, I've got it.
Okay. And the sun is warming us, and spring is coming through. And I'm sorry, it is such a joy to sit next to my mother, and I know what a privilege that is. So those good things of mothering and sunlight and spring, and I feel like I have cherries next to me. I could filling that up and sending that to someone. Maybe I'll get to act on it after this. But imagine all the people that just got thought of.
I know. It is just, it's so palpable. It's so real. It just really is how our community heals.
So this is going to be a story of art and healing. I'd like to start just in our family story with your grandmother. And can you just in brief, because it's kind of part of our family lore, can you in brief talk about Grandma Alice? It's your maternal grandmother, right? And I'm going to put this up while she tells the story.
Yes, I adored that little woman, and she was the most prolific artist that I just so admired her. And she always had this, she made clothes for her children. She painted. She did all kinds of art. I remember her always saying that she didn't start oil painting until she was in her 60s. But the biggest thing about her was her heart and how big a heart she had. She had 24 grandchildren, and each and every one of us thought we were her favorite.
I love that.
I know that I was her favorite. And
they all say
my little cousin will argue with me, and she might be watching this. And, and I know Grandma loved her dearly, but,
Well, now that we think about it, what would actually be the point of having a favorite?
It wouldn't be, but she made us feel special.
Yeah.
She's the one that would set the easel up for me so that I could paint the lake, when I was up on summer vacations. And she made me feel like, wow, I was so wonderful. And just that confidence. And, and she was my role model for grandmothering. And, I feel really grateful because I feel like I've been working into her shoes, over the years.
I love that. So thanks to our ancestors for
definitely.
inspiring us. You inspire me all the time, and you have another ancestor too. We can just mention, and you'll see some of these connections. If you've been around, you know this, but we also want to, fill people in. So tell us about this ancestor.
Well, what this is my Grandma Johnson, who is she's my mother's great-grandmother. So it's greats back. And I inherited the 1930s wedding quilt from her. And I'm in the process of my quilting journey, and I have done an entire podcast about this, so I won't go into detail.
No.
But the little circles here where the muslin meets the 30s print have her tiny little white stitches in them. She was such a kind, endearing woman. My mother adored her. That's what, it looks like.
I forgot to tell you that I was in an antique store, Mom, and I got you. So they're just little
they're little pieces.
Fabrics.
And I like to use little vintage pieces in my quilts.
I'm sorry.
That's
we're
adorable.
having a little, and to give you
love
those.
That. Well, thank you. Thank you.
Okay, so you were
quilting through.
You were a quilter.
I've done so many quilts over my lifetime, and it's just such a passion for me.
But then there came a time when you weren't able to quilt, and you weren't quilting. You had no energy for quilting.
Yeah, and I didn't know what the thing was. And fortunately, due to a fluke of going in for something else, I found out the reason why is because I had lymphoma, and my energy was completely zapped.
This is from Mark Nepo, and it's a meditation guide, and and Mark Nepo himself had cancer. I love collaborating with the universe, and today's April 8th message in here, I was like, let's just see what it says. And it's called the center of the eye, and I wanted to ask you to reflect on this as it relates to what happened. And the center of the eye, he says, in keeping the center of the eye, meaning the pronoun I, in keeping the center of the eye empty, the miracle of life can enter and heal. And he goes on and he says, our chief work as human beings rests in the sincere effort to allow that central presence to inform us. Thus, all forms of prayer and meditation are aimed at keeping the center of the eye empty, so the miracle of life in its grace and immensity can enter and heal us. And this is a time when you are facing your mortality of fear and change and loss. And I can only imagine, I was there, but it wasn't me. But I think those negative feelings we can identify with. Can you talk about that and then talk about what filled you, how you got refilled again and healed again through that process? Or what this quote, how you take that?
Well, how I was healed, I think, in it, just the very big part, other than the medicines and the great medical care that I've got. The healing and the journey was just so full of touching, family. I was so weak, and I was just like in my 90-year-old body, very unhealthy 90-year-old body.
And how old are you really?
75.
Yes, but you felt like
I felt
20
like
years
I
older.
I felt like I was, and I never really, I wasn't worried about dying so much. It was just like, oh, is this what it's like? Coming through with all the, the gratitude of like, wow, I'm starting to feel good, and I have energy, and I can do things. And the place that is now my studio, and I went into that room and I thought, I've got to do something about this. And so there I am, my under 4'11" person, and it's a very high cathedral ceilings. I took a ladder out. I had really good ladders, and this was after having been, so I could hardly walk up the stairs. I mean, hardly walk a stair. And I just got that ladder out and I painted that entire place. I chose the colors. I just went like, wow. And it was just like, whoa, where's this coming from? Remember? And I decided, oh, this is the time. I think I'm going to start painting. I've always wanted to paint. And
because you'd never painted.
I never had painted. And after going through that experience was kind of like, if not now, when, what the heck? Why, who's looking? Who cares? And I was just like,
you had a death of the ego.
I did. And it was just like I was out there, and my family would laugh because I would be out there for hours on end, painting and experimenting and trying, and it's just like the medium is so full of rich color that just taking the brush and putting it in the color purple and making a circle on the page was just, it was like, eureka. I mean, I really was so excited by it.
To be able to make the color feels
to be
like
able
godlike in a way.
Yes, very godlike.
Because us knitters, we rely on other people to make the color
Well,
for
in the
us.
same way with fabrics. With quilts, it was always, where I could find, and I have beautiful fabrics, and I love fabrics, but I wasn't a fabric designer. But this was like taking it back to where my marks on the page and my color on the page, and just discovering, oh, what happens if these two colors blend together, and what, and it was like
childlike, elemental,
it was very childlike,
and joy, play.
It was so sweet because it was at a time when my eldest grandson had moved out, and he had his first really adult apartment, and and he came over, and his roommates, and they, Grandma, can we have some of your art? I love this. And he would go out with armloads of my art, which was like, wow.
Right. And so you have made a lot of art.
I made tons of art, because I really did. I wasn't, the thing about it, and I keep, this is the message that I'm trying to, people say, I can't do that, or I'm not artistic, or I can't create. And I just want to challenge that in people and say, I didn't know how to do this. And what it takes is watercolor, water, and a paintbrush, and a nice receptive piece of paper, and just play like you did when you were a little kid, and nobody thought about it when you were doing that.
But you played, but I would like to, with this new medium, but you had 30 years of experience.
Yes, and that's yes, you're right.
Of an artist with color and balance, design.
Yeah, it was just a different pathway.
There will be products, but it's like a flood going through you. And I think that this is like, kind of like the flash of lightning, and then this is what's left. Like it's so lovely to see the renewal, the spring. I mean, you really did have a brush with death and then spring. And this is not about you. This is about that's a universal.
Yes.
That we all have that capacity and potential and can receive that gift. How would you describe how you feel about the universe and your relationship to it through making this art?
Well, it centers me. I mean, it is just the most beautiful experience. I come close to it when I'm doing quilting and doing the hand quilting and, you know, the zen of creating it. But this process, you know, what I recognized with me and watercolors is I had this realization, and it was just the neatest thing, is that a quilt is a quilt top, there's a batting, there's a backing, and then there's a binding around it. And I do all those steps, and then when you're done, you have a quilt. And it's a finished product, and it's something beautiful. And I realized that having come from that discipline to this discipline, I kept making things, and then, you know, it was just like I had to frame them. Because what happens when you frame a piece of art...
like I'm just going to show what she means. Like, here's the back, but here's the frame. And
then there's the stitches and, you know, all of that. So, I mean, that's the technique that you make a fabric quilt. And I had that realization that the watercolors were very much like my quilting experience, because I started getting like a, you know, like I just brought, this is just a small stack of on frame, but it was probably... Yeah, it was. I mean, it was really, you know, I'd come in at the end of the day and say, look what I've done. Look at this, look at that. You know, and I'd get all this like a little kid. They'd be, oh, Mom, that's so cool.
Can we just look at that one, please? It looks so Chagall. I don't mean to say that, but it looks so joyful. I love this. Oh, I don't want the sun to come in on it, but there. Okay.
Yeah, I just love, you know, exploring how to do flowers. I did a lot of, you know, but I didn't really like the trying to replicate, you know, that kind of painting. I like to do the feeling, the joyful expression of what happens with colors. And just learning how the colors, you know, with every medium, there's a joy in learning your tools. And so a lot of what I was doing was learning my tools. And so I did that. I did lots of framing. I did lots of circles. I did flowers. I did landscapes. I did, you know, frame.
But eventually you found something that was like...
Well, and then eventually it was just kind of amazing. I went like, you know, and I just wanted, these are kind of what I was doing. These are just the very simple. I have big paintings like this, but they're just circles, and the colors are...
They're not just circles. No, I mean, they are circles.
I also had the side pleasure of my youngest grandson came back for the one that's on the adventure, and he was painting, and we were painting together. So the energy in the place is what I'm trying to share, was just exploding. And at one point I had this like eureka. I had this stack of papers, and I thought, oh, what I love to do with fabric, I always cut fabric up into pieces and then put it back together again and stitch on top of it. It's what you do. It's what quilts are. And since all of the watercolors I'm doing are on 100% cotton paper, and it's the beautiful color on top of it. So it's a really big subject here and where this is all going. But what I want to share, what I want to get to, is what happened with this eureka moment of recognizing that my watercolor papers could be just like a piece of fabric that I have designed. So I cut them up, and this particular group that I have here are 2-inch squares. And I just had a gorgeous time of just cutting up randomly my 2-inch squares and then a circle that fits within a 2-inch square.
Can you show some?
And so I came up with this format, which is the simplest pattern in quilting. It's a 4-patch, and it's just, you know, I use it over and over and over. It's a beautiful pattern. It's used with many different kinds of pieces. It's very traditional, and it just looks gorgeous in the watercolor pieces. I love them. I discovered these small frames that are lightweight, that are just meant to be, they could be used as a quilt block or whatever. But anyway, I just found these were so exciting to do that I ended up, I think I've got white frames, I've got wood frames, I have black frames, and I just kept doing them because I love the combinations of them. Well, that's wonderful. But then when I got done with that, I was like, oh my goodness, there's more here. What about if I took that, I've been really drawn to the format of a square right now. And what if I went to a 12-inch square and made one of my other favorite quilt patterns, which is a 25 patch. That's a 5x5. And if you can imagine, I have like a whole tub full of these squares. And so the delight of being able to take different color groupings, different, it just stimulated my...
This looks so much like a quilt.
Yes, I mean, it just stimulated. Oh yeah, you see it next to the quilt. It was so stimulating to my creative process. And then I thought, instead of gluing these down, I just came up with a free form method of going to my sewing machine and stitching them down. And the stitching down was like, oh my God, it's like
You've never machine quilted in your life. You've always hand quilted.
But this was such a fun thing. It was like having, when I'm anxious, it's like having a pacifier. I don't know how to describe it, but it just felt so beautiful.
God, Mom, these are so vital and full of life. I can't get over it.
Every single one of them is coming from that time in my life when I was childlike, exploring color, exploring line, exploring design, marks on paper, abstracts.
It just says that. It says it without, you feel it without even having to.
And I honestly couldn't stop. They just keep, I think I have probably 60 of these, and they're all different. They're all, and it's a melodic.
So people can come to the show to see, I'm going to do this.
Yeah, because I stopped framing them. I have about 20 of these that are in these. They're beautiful in the frame, and that will be available. There'll be some of those.
Mom, they're so beautiful.
But it is. It's like look at this one. This is so contemporary. It's like citrus. It's like, look at that. And that was just my, oh my God, that. And, because of where I come with my quilt background, it was the same joy. These are it was the same joy as taking fabric and cutting it into squares and being surprised how the squares play together next to each other and the lines come through and, I don't know. I have found this to be...
Can I read kind of a poem while you show some of the work? You show the work, I'll read the poem.
Okay.
And you can comment to look at the camera while you're showing the work so that you can see that they can see it. There you go, Mom. Yeah. Okay, so you can just keep going through and showing.
Okay.
Yeah. But you might stack them over on your side rather than mine.
Yeah, and I want to show there's lots of different...
Right, but Mom,
okay, we'll keep on this kind.
Okay, and I don't want to be shown, so if you could hold them, so so
there we go.
All right, so I'm going to read this poem, and I want you to comment on it when you're done. But just go through some of the work. This is by David White. Start close in. Don't take the second step or the third. Start with the first thing. Close in. The step you don't want to take. Start with the ground you know, the pale ground beneath your feet, your own way of starting the conversation. Start with your own question. Give up on other people's question. Don't let them smother something simple. To find another's voice, follow your own voice. Mm-hmm. Wait until that voice becomes a private ear listening to another. Start right now. take a small step you can call your own. Don't follow someone else's heroics. I love that so much. Be humble and focused. Start close in. Don't mistake that other for your own. Start close in. Don't take the second step or the third. Start with the first thing, close in, the step you don't want to take. Can you tell me about starting close in and how this is? How would you?
I think what these do to me, especially the ones that are just kind of loose like this so that I can hold them, is I feel such a profound thread in my life. I feel like these are culminating for so much of what I've been through, what my family's gone through, what my country's gone through. I mean, I always talked about my quilts or stories. They're always, you know, when you do a quilt, you're quilting in the story of what's going on in your life. And that's what these are. And I don't quite even know, you know, I don't know what their end game is, but I just know that I love them.
But you started.
I started, and I'm thrilled, and
You started with circles.
I started
That was your first step.
Yeah, I did. Well, yeah, I did circles, and what I have done in these.
I mean, you remember you did the colored dots. You didn't try to do landscapes. You tried to do. You just enjoyed color, and then you took another step. But do you feel like you found your own voice?
I do. I really feel.
How does that feel? Like, what's the value in finding your own voice?
Oh, it's so exciting. It feels so good. It feels like I'm listening to what I'm taking the gifts, I'm taking the gratitude, I'm taking what I've been given, and I'm giving it back.
And that's what I wanted to ask, because it's finding your own voice isn't for the ego.
No.
It's a paradox, isn't it?
It's kind of like, and I do keep going back to that because I want people to know that we all have this in us in some way or other. And it's just like, I know that's my next step is I want to share, you know, if it helps to sit with a group of other people and try it, you know.
Right.
I'm excited to think about what you might do with dip your paint in the color purple or the color orange.
Right. But in the meantime, the purpose of this video is to reintroduce yourself and so we won't show them all. And
it's hard not to do this one.
I know,
Okay.
right, but they're all wonderful. And as I want you to know that as I look at them, I don't want to give any of them away. I want to keep them all. I want to, clutch. Well, but I just want to say, I love this impulse. And can you talk about the impulse to share?
Yeah, the impulse to share, and that's why I didn't, the 4-patch, I wanted it to be accessible. I wanted it to be, I don't want it to be expensive. I don't want it to be out of reach for people. And so I've made these small things that almost anybody, anybody, honestly, if you talk to me and, most of my quilts, or most of my paintings I've given away to this point, and, but obviously I need to have something to reimburse the cost of the equipment, but no, sharing it is very, very important. And I don't even know that you have to own it. I think it's more of like, I look at this stack.
That's just the least of this.
Yeah.
Yeah, because the stacks are...
Yeah, there's 40.
So you look at the stack and what?
I look at the stack and I want people to be able to sit with the stack in their own time, and I want it to be like almost like an installation, like they could sit there and go through them, because I think what I think what these do for me,
Mm-hmm.
I think they do for other people too. I think they bring joy. I think they bring possibility. I think they bring...
I mean, how couldn't they, Mom? Because they were created, like, going through this, crucible, right?
Right, yeah.
Into play and joy and vitality and multi-generational.
Mm-hmm.
You were seen and loved into being by ancestors and by grandchildren. And it is this, both ends. And it's so strange because we are temporary. And so we could put our value on this as an object, but this is just to hold that love.
Yeah,
it's a way to hold the love for a minute that flashes through, that we all have and we all share.
Well, because what I wanted to say is these framed ones, I have these sitting around in various places in my home. They're just sitting on the mantle or sitting on the table. And I find when I'm like, my mind is full of like, oh my God, what's going to happen? What, the anxiety of living, I can just rest my mind. There's so much going on in here, and yet each one has a calming effect. It's, it's kind of hard to explain. And like with anything else, what I've done when I've given them away is I've said, I'm not going to pick it for you. You go through and pick it. And it's just been delightful to see what people are drawn to.
And you know what I love of knowing you for as long as I have, my whole life.
Right.
Is you're not, the question of if I'm an artist or if it's good is not even asked anymore. It becomes an irrelevant question.
Yeah, it's irrelevant when it comes to these, because who can fault a kid's drawings? You know what I mean? Do you ever say to your kid, oh, well, I don't like that? And if you do, shame on you. But no, I mean, that's what these are. These were like, I want to learn how to do watercolor, and I'm not going to take myself so seriously because I want to see how to make a flower. And by playing with it on, on my paper, I could go, wow, look at that,
Well, what do you want to leave? I mean, so it's people could come see. I'll be there too.
Yeah, it's going to be fun.
Charlene's going to come too, and so we'll be at the Good Day Shop.
And the family.
So we'll all be there. Say the date and the time again.
It's May 16th from 5 to 9 p.m. On Monroe Street.
And the other exciting thing that you'll be developing, so stay tuned in this channel, is Sally is very excited to teach these skills in the future.
Yeah, I would like to do that. I want to have art nights, that kind of thing, where we kind of come together, and I
because I feel like we all could use art nights.
My niece, my other daughter, everybody says to me, oh, I can't do this, and I just want to sit them down at that beautiful table and go, okay, let's just, you put the, your paintbrush in there and let's see what you can do.
Well, that's wonderful. So if people want to stay in touch with you, they can find you on, is it Sally Jerney Quilts on Instagram?
Right, and then the information about Sarah from the Good Day Shop will be advertising. That'll be in the Monroe Street.
And we'll put that stuff in the show notes below as well. And if you are interested in further, more of her stories, there's old videos that go into more of your quilting journal. And then you very often appear on my channel, Jackson Rose, because of course you're just a creative force, and I love and adore you.
Well, and it's mutual.
Yeah. Well, thank you for joining us.
Thank you, and welcome to those of you that this was your new time. And I am a little bit chatty.
Oh,
that's who I am.
Totally fine, Mom. And thank you to all of you who have been in our lives all this while.
Yes, you've meant a lot.
Okay, and to new friends and to old friends.
Yes.
Thanks, Mom. And I'm just so, it's not pejorative to say I'm proud of you. I'm proud of you in the way that I'm like, I adore like robins, and you're just one of these wonderful things in life. So
thank you. Thank you. It just, I'm so lucky to be in this family.
Yes.
I really am.
Yes. Okay. Sending you all love. Bye.
Bye-bye.